think the time is gone now where people had values at home in their personal lives and then just went to work and did a job that was disconnected. People really don't want to waste their precious time, frankly, working for somewhere that's not going to be a force for good. And I love that. I love that it just goes back to the aura map, doesn't it? And this sort of general awakening, I think it doesn't surprise me that it's in sync.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast, where you'll hear conversations that generate one aha moment after another for you. There is an enormous wave of goodness in progress well underway in the world that almost none of us knows enough about. It is so well hidden by the negative noise in our media landscape that I'm calling this wave of goodness in progress a conspiracy of goodness. And if you're listening to this podcast, it's probably because you are part of that wave. You may be an idea person, the person that's an important giver or doer in your circles. And the guests on this podcast, different as they may be every single week, they can be inspiration, joy, and the source of fresh ideas about how you continue this key role that you have as a leader in the conspiracy of goodness. Small and large, whatever you're doing, if you're tuned into this podcast because you want to hear about what's right with the world, you are probably part of that wave. So welcome. I'm Dr. Lynda Ulrich, founder of the mothership website of this podcast over at the Goodness Exchange. The Goodness Exchange is a website where we've published thousands of articles about all the good that's happening in the world that we're not hearing anything about in our media landscape. All the doom and gloom certainly makes it to the top, but what's right with the world is just a quiet voice. Unless we all come together in places like the Goodness Exchange and the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast and many, many other places in our media landscape that is trying to elevate this different narrative about all the possibility that's out there. And today we're going to get started on that with a wonderful guest, Claudia Ruane. I am going to re-ask her about that in just a minute because I pronounced it wrong for about 2 weeks since I first met her. But I got to tell you, Claudia is just an amazing thought leader that when I was introduced to her, I had to share with you. Claudia is Chief Engagement Officer of an amazing company that is pointing the way to our living lives of balance in a sustainable way with the future that does not feel like loss and sacrifice. This is a really big part of this whole climate change mitigation and what you and I and everyone in the world has to do next. We have to get over this sense of loss. Well, she works for an organization called Do Nation. Do Nation has worked with 500 organizations across 100 countries already, and nearly 60,000 people have pledged. So, together, what they've done is saving the equivalent carbon emissions of having driven around the world 4,500 times. This is Meaningful Difference. Claudia, welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast. She sent me a few sentences about herself very humbly today, and I thought it was a perfect introduction. She said that that she decided that conventional living was something that happened to other people when she was quite young. So she's been rejecting the status quo forever and leading with values and curiosity and a creative spirit. And most of her working life worked with purpose-driven organizations. This is a life worth living and a life worth sharing with us here at the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast. Claudia, how are you?
Oh, I'm so well. Thanks, Lynda. Thanks so much for having me. What a lovely introduction.
Well, I tell you, I introduced our mutual friend, David Pearl. And after I finished that kind of introduction, he said, wait, let me go get my wife. She needs to hear this. We all are all together, all of us, just ordinary people in the end, aren't we?
ordinary and also extraordinary. Yeah, totally.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. Well, everyday people are having some trouble with this narrative about how we are part of climate change mitigation without feeling like we're sacrificing lives well lived. Let's
Mm.
start by having you blow the doors off that myth, because I talked to you for an hour and a half one day and I felt like anything's possible.
Well, I think it is. Yeah, I think it's a really great place to start because we do have a big deal on our hands, right? There's no
Mhm,
avoiding the fact that climate change is a big issue with strong feelings and emotions associated with it, and we can feel powerless in the face of it, which is not a great feeling, and
mhm,
we can feel alone as well in that and and do nation just prove we've been going for 12 years now, so we've got quite a lot of evidence. We just prove time and time again that when you bring people together in a community and you give them just some pretty simple, I mean, these aren't big secrets that we're sharing with people, pretty simple, practical steps and things that they can do. It's just like a little lift up.
mhm,
You bring people together, give them a little bit of a lift up. You can take them from climate anxiety into action and then onto, I mean, really, like anything is possible, onto advocacy, onto innovation, imagination, creativity. And when we stop feeling worried and anxious, our creative brains and our imaginations click into place. And that's when we can see the possibilities. And that's when we can see the potential, not just of ourselves, but of the people around us. And that's when you really start, you can really start going for it. And then you have your own evidence, which then gives you more confidence. And it's a sort of, it's this just brilliant, ever growing cycle of action and impact.
That's lovely. That is such a great way to kind of introduce us, tiptoe us in. And it reminds me instantly of a concept that we wrote about on the Goodness Exchange. There's a fabulous TED talk about something called stubborn optimism. Talk to us about how this way of thinking that you're proposing gets to that stubborn optimism opportunity for us all.
Sure, love to. So, stubborn optimism is something I came across a couple of years ago. There's an amazing woman called Christiana Figueres who leads on this. She's written an incredible book with a guy called Tom. I really recommend it. Um, in a nutshell, stubborn optimism is about tapping into human power and agency, really. It's about it's about recognizing the reality of climate change and the kind of hopelessness that comes with that, um, but understanding that we actually know. So we know there's a problem, but we also know that we have everything we need to solve it. We actually, I don't know if everyone knows this. Even as I say it, and I say it all the time, it kind of blows my mind each time. We have the technology, we have the finance, we have the ideas, and we have the people, but we don't really have the people. So
Okay.
we have the human capacity, potential capacity, but I don't think everyone realizes that we have all of these other solutions just lined up, ready to go. And so stubborn optimism is brilliant because it helps us, it moves us from a kind of state of naivety, naive imagination, and just hoping that things will be okay, and hoping that things will turn out all right, and hoping that the next government will solve all the problems, or the next multinational business will get a new CEO and suddenly they'll change everything. We need to own our own parts in this, but that's not all on us. Well, it's not all on one person because we're all acting as parts of a community in action.
Yeah, no, it is a very complicated, it's a complicated new way of looking at things. I think that when I think about stubborn optimism, I'm reminded of the stories of almost everyone who we've ever written about on the Goodness Exchange. Our own story, your founder's story. These are totally examples of just wind in our faces efforts because of something back here that we know to be true.
Hmm.
And so we keep going and we keep going and we keep going despite the pushback. And usually there's a breakthrough, and then we can see that all that struggle and all that perseverance was worth it.
Mm.
So maybe that's a great way to get into your founder story, because that's just a great way to learn how things come about. Talk to us about your founder story, Claudia.
Yeah, perfect. So our founder is a wonderful woman called Hermione. She has a behavioral science background, and that's what she was studying for. And she decided she had a hypothesis that she wanted to test. So she, along with a friend, decided to cycle on bicycles from London to Morocco to North Africa. It's a fair distance, and she wanted to find out if she could ask her friends and family to pledge a small climate action while she was cycling. So, more conventionally, you might ask someone to donate some money to go to a charity if you're doing some sort of sporting challenge like that. And she thought, hang on a minute, maybe if I ask people to pledge action instead of cash, that could lead to some really interesting things happening. So she did that. She cycled to Morocco, and I mean, cycling through Spain, there's some pretty lovely days on the road there, right? It's
Yeah.
not all hardship, but she did find when she got to Morocco and the Atlas Mountains in particular that there was some climbs. And you're not cycling. The fun bit about cycling is you go up a hill and then you get to go down. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in Morocco, I mean, you don't get to go down in the same day. You just keep going up and up and up and up, and thighs burning, sun on her back. It's a tough ride, but do you know what kept her going? Was the idea that her brother, who really, really loves eating meat, had pledged to go vegetarian 1 day a week. And she knew that despite the heat and the fatigue, muscle fatigue from cycling up that mountain, her brother not eating meat for a day a week was much harder for him than it was for her. So she discovered along the way all all of these things that she really didn't think. She just had no idea these sort of consequences of this ride. And when she got back, she crunched some numbers. She worked out all of the things that her friends and family had said they'd do, like turning the thermostat down by 1 degree, eating less meat, cycling occasionally to work or school, those sorts of little, fairly everyday things. She crunched the numbers and she worked out that she'd not only saved her flight and her friend's flight to Morocco because they cycled, the impact of all of those friends and family actions, the carbon they'd saved collectively was equivalent to 82 flights from London to Morocco, which is not inconsiderable, right?
Yes.
And she's, I will admit, she sort of thought her friends and family might say, oh, thank goodness you're back. We don't have to do that anymore. It was so hard.
Yes.
But no, the opposite. She surveyed them because she loves data. And she found out that they not only did they enjoy the actions and their new habits and new ways of doing things, but they wanted to continue doing, and they wanted to try something new now, please.
Nice.
What's my next step?
All right, so this gets us so there when you if you were to go to the Do Nation website, you're going to immediately get a choice as a organization or an individual. So you can go in different places, and it sounds to me like this what you just described as your founder's experience and then impact. You've created a place for individuals to go and create their own projects and impact and pledges and all that. And it just sounds so delightful. So I was going to start with the business side of this, but let's start with the individual side since there's such an inherent connection between that and your founder's experience.
Yeah, lovely. Let's do that. So that still exists. That's a part of our website where people can go and it's completely free of charge. It's our sort of not for profit arm. You can go on, and if you are doing a sporting challenge, or maybe you've got a big birthday coming up actually, and you'd rather people give action rather than cash. You can set up a little page and then send everyone your link, and then they can choose from a menu of different things and pledge that. We have couples who've used it as an alternative wedding list.
Oh,
So they've had 100, 200 people pledge action instead of giving wedding gifts, which is really lovely because weddings can get a little over the top sometimes,
mhm.
right? So that's a really nice way to bring people back to community and back down to earth a bit. And we've had recently we had a 30th birthday on the platform, and people just use it all the time. Every day we get a little notification someone set up a new page, and it just trundles along, and it's there for everyone and anyone to use. And it's really lovely to see, actually, and quite we love seeing the slightly more ingenious or creative ways that people use it.
I was thinking about the way I would use it in my mind and so forth. And I was thinking one of the things that would come out of this would be it would spark new conversations. There was like a ripple effect that goes well beyond the actual, carbon footprint, I think. Don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. So I used to talk about the ripple effect quite a lot because this is a huge part that we don't always talk about. So you talk about your carbon footprint or your environmental footprint. I think that's pretty well understood, right? So emissions, maybe how much kind of waste you generate, how much water you use, that kind of thing. There's a ripple effect of influence, and someone started calling it the climate shadow, but I find that can be shadow's a bit gloomy for me, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Okay.
So I have started calling it your climate aura,
Yeah.
which I love because when you start taking action, like on Do Nation, you can see when other people in your community are taking an action, and you can see how much carbon they're saving, how much waste they're saving. So there's kind of that social proof there. So you can say, oh, I'm also going to try and cut my food waste down. So I'm going to talk to Shelley and get some tips from her. And then you pledge yours and someone else will see it. So there's that kind of immediate influence. But if you start cycling to work, even just once a month, your neighbors are going to see that, and you start normalizing these behaviors. And of course, if you talk about it, it sparks all sorts of amazing conversations. We ran an amazing, I say we, in conjunction with a company over here, they ran an amazing program and they engaged thousands of their workforce all over the UK. And it was, oh, it was really magical. It was really, really brilliant. They used Yammer at work for chats, and it hadn't really taken off. They had it in place, and as an internal comms channel, it helped get the key messages out, but it wasn't really a community space.
Yeah.
Their donation program, and I mean, nearly made it topple over from so much traffic. People were sharing tips on recycling, sharing vegan recipes, taking pictures in the supermarket and the stores. Why is this tomato wrapped in plastic? I just don't understand. Can someone tell me why? And it really just became the most incredible success story for Yammer, I think, but also for their engagement program and for climate action and those lovely conversations, because we're humans and we love connection and we love talking,
Mm-hmm.
and we're so creative. And I think this loops back round to the beginning of the conversation when we're talking about not feeling like not feeling a bit anxious and not feeling like we have power. But as soon as we start those conversations, those bits in our brains just start firing. And that's when that I love the idea of the climate aura, because we don't really know how bright it shines. It's not
Yeah.
something that we can necessarily see ourselves, but it is shining, and every time you do something, it kind of zings, it pings with light. And I was thinking about it the other day, and when you see a picture of, sometimes on TV or in a program, you see a picture of the globe, like the camera's quite far away, and you can see the bit of the curve of the earth, but you can see all the lights on in all the cities. The biggest
Yeah.
cities sort of have the brightest shining lights. And I was thinking, actually, you know we're reaching quite a lot of positive tipping points now,
Yes.
with climate action, with renewable energy days, with electric vehicle use. There's all of these. I think we're reaching a climate or a tipping point, and we just need a certain amount of people. I think the stat is, I think we need 1 million people, and then it becomes normalized. And then that's the tipping point, right? And then the world is flooded with climate auras, and the light is just zinging off the world.
I tell you, that's the way I look at this conspiracy of goodness upwelling that I
Mm,
talk to people about all the time. You're part of it. There is just so much good happening in the world. When I started the Goodness Exchange 10 years ago, I looked at what I could find that was good to start writing about, and I thought I had about 3 months worth of content. And if something didn't take off, project would have a short life. And then within a year, we had a backlog of 300 things that we could choose from. And then every year, you are so right about the tipping point. I really feel like
mm,
if we just look at the climate change mitigation or the fact that people care. I mean, you gave me a statistic. You've heard it said that 8 out of 10 people want a climate change related job. I think
yes.
you're absolutely right. I read about a study done of the California state college system where they quizzed all the students. 80% of college students want some climate change related job, even if they're English majors or math majors. They had to kind of incorporate it into the curriculum in most majors now. It's become
That's
so
brilliant.
yeah, and that's part of this worm turning right now. So let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk with Claudia about so many things, some small tips, what the business side of this is that your organization you may work for can get involved in, and all that. Okay, we'll be back. Hey, Dr. Lynda here. Did you know that a recent Harvard study found that exposure to just 4 minutes of good news each day will make you 32% less anxious and 18% more optimistic? Just 4 minutes. We've all got that much time to devote to our worldview and our sense of flourishing. Yes, if you make a habit of learning about just one piece of remarkably good news each day, you can be the one in your circles with fresh insights, ideas, and a sense of strength. Okay, so that takes care of the problem in our personal lives. But what about our work environments? We need to feel like we come alive there, that we have meaning and purpose there. Well, enter the Goodness Exchange for business. For companies that want to create optimistic and values driven work cultures, our content can give you a way to turn aspirational ideas like positivity into a concrete way of being in the workplace. In fact, employee retention and attraction may depend on your company's ability to nurture a tone of innovation, interesting collaborations, and possibility. And most importantly, the Goodness Exchange can meaningfully elevate your company's wellness efforts and benefits packages. Your work culture can be offering employees something new, peace of mind, and that sense of flourishing, where employees' well-being isn't just a perk, it's the way we care about the individuals in our workplaces. So, if you'd like to chat about infusing your culture with a tone of celebration, about goodness and progress, we'd love to chat. Contact our CEO, Liesl. Her email address is info@goodnessexchange.com. Thanks. Okay, we're back with Claudia Ruane. I got to tell you, Claudia is filling me with hope about this way that climate change used to feel like such a sacrifice, or climate change, our role in climate change mitigation used to feel like such a sacrifice, but now it doesn't feel so boring anymore, and it doesn't feel hard. You've got some quick tips that you mentioned in our pre-interview, so let's get back at the conversation and start with a few of those.
Yeah, great. Okay. So we work a lot with really, really busy people.
Yeah.
So it's really important to just be able to think, okay, well, what's a quick tip that can have a big impact? I think that's really important to us. So I've got a couple of good ones. The first one is quite simple, and I think I imagine a lot of your listeners are already doing this, but getting a reusable coffee mug.
Yeah.
In the UK, when you have a reusable coffee mug, you get money off your coffee every day.
Oh,
So you save money and you save the environmental waste. So it's such a, it's, and it doesn't You're not sacrificing anything, you're not losing anything. It so quickly just becomes part of your daily life. There's another one which I love because it has huge impact, and it can take maybe half an hour, and that is to move your money. So where we bank has incredible impact and consequences on the world. There are some banks that will invest your money in ethical and sustainable activities, and there are some banks that will invest money in fossil fuel companies, arms, and other things. So depending on how you feel about the world, you can switch banks, and it sometimes is as much as making a phone call to your new bank saying, here are my details, filling out one form. Sometimes it's really just one short form, and they do the rest for you.
Really?
Changing banks is one of those sort of big, gnarly behavior change things. And actually, banks know that. So they have designed out a lot of the pain to make it really easy for people. The other thing you
Oh,
can
so
also,
you call, you're saying, just to make sure, call the bank you want to switch to.
yeah, call the
Oh,
bank you want to
okay.
switch to. Yeah.
That is a quick win. Okay, good.
Really quick
Keep going.
one. And then the other thing in a similar vein, but again, I love this because it can have a really, really, really big impact, is if your organization, your employer, provides pension funds, you can ask them to choose more sustainable funds. So they don't necessarily need to change the pension provider, but they can change different pots, and you can do that too. And again, that can just be one phone call to your pension provider, just to say I'd like 50% of my pension to be in sustainable or ethical funds. Um, and they used to come with quite high risk,
Yeah.
those funds, but now the risk is reduced a lot, so you don't necessarily lose savings. So I really like those because they are maybe not what you'd think immediately. You might think more like stop using plastic shopping bags and use a cotton shopper, right? Which of course do that.
Yeah.
But the banking thing is really cool because it has just a very, very, very big impact.
And I'm sure you could go on, but I want to point out something you said the other day that kind of stuck with me. This taking action is the antidote to anxiety. Boy, when you said that to me, I thought of other things, not related to climate change, but other things when I'm anxious about something that my kids are up to, or when I'm anxious about something in my business life. Talk to us about that little quote.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you love discovering that because I think that's one of those little steps. We talk about little steps along the way that can help move people into action, and sometimes just knowing knowing that if you do try something, it's going to help you, is really important. So 70% of um, adults in the UK are worried about climate change, right? I don't know the stats globally. People know there's a problem and they're worried about it and they feel anxious about it and they don't know what to do about it. And then that means that they just stay in this, not particularly comfortable place of being, knowing there's a problem and not being able to do anything about it. So we find that it can it can be overwhelming to think about the big problem, right?
Mm.
And that can turn people off. You just
Mhm.
sort of go, okay, oh, really big problem, head in the sand. Thank you very much. I'm just going to carry on with my life, and someone else will sort it out, hopefully. But you don't really feel much better for it. I was thinking the other day, I had a piece of work to do, and it was sort of outside of my normal job, and it was a favor for a friend, and I really wanted to do it for them, and I had a deadline, and I just thought, if I do it tonight rather than on the deadline night, it will be done, and then I won't have to do it anymore. And then I thought, I'm really tired and I really want to watch that show on Netflix. And so I think I'll just watch the show on Netflix and go to bed early, actually. And I knew there was quite a loud voice in me saying, just do it. Just write the article. Just write the piece. Just do it because then it's done. And then the other voice just managed to shout over the top and just said, Netflix. So I watched Netflix, I went to bed, and I woke up feeling a bit crappy because I hadn't done what I needed to do. And I think climate action is a little bit like that. You feel so much better when you've done something. Oh my goodness. And when when you take action with us or within a community, you don't only benefit from knowing that you've actually done something. That increases your well-being, right? Because instantly you're part of the solution, right? You also, with a lot of the actions, you usually feel fitter or healthier, or you save money, as in that coffee cup example. You have immediate, tangible, personal benefits that have nothing to do with your carbon footprint, by the way, but are just really nice bonus benefits. So that makes you feel good.
Mhm.
And then you're acting alongside your community. So you're making connections and you're having those conversations. And when you are taking action with people around you, that's when it feels really good. And
Mhm.
it just turbocharges that confidence, right? Because you're gathering evidence that what you're doing is right. You're gaining confidence to say, oh no, well, I did that. I started using my reusable coffee cup. I'm going to get a shopping bag now that I can just reuse every time. And next time, I might even walk. I mean, I might even leave the car behind next time. I just want to get a pint of milk. In fact, I think I'll just walk to the shop. Oh, I can take a I'll take a trolley next time, and then I can do the whole, and you just start. You're on that lovely staircase of change, and there are big feelings that come with climate change. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that. Like, it's not all roses. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you don't just change up your behaviors just like that. But once you're on the right path and you're doing it with people around you, it is so much easier and it's so rewarding.
Yeah, I tell you, as you're talking and you're giving these examples, I'm thinking of how being a part of this new way of thinking about our individual actions and its impact is a conversation starter with strangers. It's a feeling of belonging. It's a suddenly you're part of a community. Like when my husband and I just bought our first e-bikes, and we live in a very rural setting in the woods in Vermont near Montreal, and so we can't use those bikes like would be sensible in an urban area to commute to work. But in the store where we were, there was what was called a cargo e-bike, and it looks like a regular bicycle, but it has these funny long bars coming off the back. And I thought, now that is a community and conversation starter. And then my kids that were with us, 30 somethings, they went on to they just rambled on for 15 minutes about how this particular bike, this cargo bike, is like it's, it's like the minivan of mom cycles, taking your kids to school on the e-bike, or it's the hauler vehicle, the delivery van vehicle, like you can go to the grocery store with it and so forth. And I thought, oh, parking this thing places or riding it places, it would make you instantly part of a whole new world of people who care about the same things you do. And I think it probably starts with a coffee cup, right?
Hmm. Oh, absolutely,
Yeah, lovely.
absolutely.
Okay, so we can't go much further without talking about how you guys can help businesses, companies, large and small, big corporations, um, create this healthier, happier workforce with this
Mm.
concept.
Mm. Yeah, great. So when I mentioned before, we started off with Hermione riding to Morocco, and it started out as an individual donate by doing campaign. About 5 years in, a really famous smoothie company over here came to Hermione and said, "We'd like to run this in our workplace." And initially she said no. She said, "No, I don't think it would work," which I love. And then they came back 6 months later and they said, "No, we really think it will work." And she said, "Okay, fine." And so they started developing the platform so that organizations can have a sort of hub, and teams can then make pledges together. And so we now have this digital platform and we work with multinational organizations of all shapes and sizes. And it's a space where people can come together and they can make pledges. And we've designed it so that you can plan a program in line with organizational either points in the year or a new sustainability strategy, net zero targets, whatever it is that is going on for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
You can sort of customize and design your action program to engage people in different ways at different points in the year. And there's a little bit of friendly competition built in, but mostly it's centered around community. So when people can see in real time all of the data. They can see how many people have made a pledge. They can see how much carbon, waste, and water is potentially going to be saved. And then when people start reporting back and telling us how they have done with their pledges, people can see how much has actually been confirmed and the impact that's confirmed. And then you can have leaderboard features, which this smoothie company, who are very fun and quirky, their brand is all about kind of really friendly competition and having a lot of fun and laughs. They had a leaderboard so they could see whether the Paris office is at the top of the leaderboard. Quickly, guys, let's make some more pledges and, pit them to the post. And so they built in lots of fun things, and lots of organizations will have in their team meetings people sharing stories around their successes, but also which brings humor to it, which is really important in our line of work. Bring your failures, so you tried to do this, but oh my gosh, it didn't work. How hilarious. This is what I'm going to try next time. So it just brings the conversation around action into work in different ways. And of course organizations will use it in a way that suits them.
Mm.
But we have some lovely juicy data that I would like to share with you. So not only do we have the personal benefits for the pledges, so for example, 2/3 of people who take action on donation say report increased sense of well-being. That's 68%, which is amazing, right? It's so cool. Half feel fitter and healthier after we asked them after 2 months after making their pledge. So they've had a few weeks of doing this thing. 47% say they save money. So that totally blows out of the water this idea that being sustainable is more expensive. We've got half of people saying they save money, and 77 in 10 people say they feel part of a community making a difference together, and that's at work. And what I love about the organizational programs is that 8 in 10 people say they're more proud of their organization for doing something to tackle sustainability. And 85% of people report an increased awareness and understanding of sustainability and climate change. So it's upskilling people. It's increasing climate literacy, which is the foundation layer, along with a kind of a connection to wanting to do something. That's when you start building those climate jobs into a workforce, and that's when you get to see change happening at like a systemic level.
Ah,
Mm.
that is so lovely. And I can see again that sense of community and belonging, and that reinforcement of what's right with the world. You know, we at the Goodness Exchange help businesses work good news into their workforce, into their day.
Mhm.
And the statistic that you quoted, the ones that we're using from Harvard studies and others, fall right in line with that. I mean, we do have so much agency over how we feel about our days, so much more than we thought.
We do, don't we? And I think the time is gone now where people had values at home in their personal lives and then just went to work and did a job
Hmm.
that was disconnected.
Hmm.
People
Yeah,
really, really don't want to waste their time, their precious time, frankly,
yeah.
working for somewhere that's not going to be a force for good.
Hmm.
And I love that. I love that those. I mean, it just goes back to the aura map, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And this sort of general awakening. I think it's really. It doesn't surprise me that it's in sync.
No, and it's so self-reinforcing too. It's really a snowball. All right, so I hope we've got people excited to go to the Do Nation website and just dive in with some fun. It's a really good website. I just was on it half an hour ago trying to sort out uh, where I would connect or where I could recommend people connect. And I really think it's just about as you've explained. If you've got a birthday coming up, a wedding, an event or something, and you want to um, expand what's possible with this action over here, the ripple effect on that individual side is super. And then on the organizational side, whew, I think the number one business in the business problem in the United States is attracting and retaining really wonderful talent, and I can see that this would attract the right kind of people for most businesses that have a purpose driven organization.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
really,
lovely.
it's really, we've had it, we've had it in quite a lot of feedback that people love seeing that their organization is not just talking the talk but walking the walk. And I know
Yes.
it's a cliche, but it's a great word. It's a great phrase because it really sums it up. Yeah.
It really sums it up. Okay. So also I want to make sure people understand that when you say the word pledge, at least Americans think that's money. Think
Aha.
that we're talking about um, creating pledges or creating a system where your pledges grow. Um, Most Americans would go, "Oh, we're going to be asked to donate to this or that or the other thing with money." But I want to make sure if you have to go back and re-listen to this podcast and think of everything in terms of action, this is what you're offering. A new way of thinking about, Claudia, is taking action, being expansive, offering your friends and circles and work compadres a way to also get a spring in their step through actually making a little bit of a difference and coming together around it. Am I right about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Can I read
Lovely.
a quote? Can I
Yes.
read a quote to end on because I think it sums up what you
Hmm.
just said really nicely. So this is a program that ended just last week, and a company that have every kind of year they come back and they run another program. So they're returners, and they said we're in a time when climate anxiety is high and there's a sense of hopelessness around it. Knowing steps you can take, being aware of these, and being able to promote to others externally helped bring a sense of control. The sense of friendly competition and community this created within the company gave people something to talk about and added another aspect to our day to day lives. Knowledge is power.
That's lovely. That's a that you could break that down. You could take 10 minutes on every single one of the points that they made there. Well, this is what we're all shooting for is a work-life balance that includes meaning and purpose in our working life. And then part of that balance thing is not feeling so out of balance by the negative noise in this world. What if it's about the noise? And what if it's about us realizing we don't have to listen to the noise, we can take action?
I love that. We're living in a time of transformative change, and we just have to remember that, I think, and hold
Yeah.
on to it.
Yeah, and the upside to it. The upside, it doesn't have to be a slog.
Yeah.
Okay, so if this interview had only been a couple minutes long, what do you really wish people knew? Sometimes when you do, get inundated by the bad news or you see something that's not ideal happen right in front of you or whatever, I know that I have a little 2-minute message I give about how we navigate the internet differently. It's what I really wish people knew, that their click is a vote, that they should not click on anything that they don't want more of. But what do you really wish people knew?
I love this. It's, I have so many different answers to this, but I would say that you can achieve anything. You are amazing. And just ask what really matters to you deep down and act on your values.
Lovely. Lovely. You can never go wrong if you act on your values.
Yeah.
You can stand up to the criticism of others because you're acting on your values. So you can stand up to almost anything. We're back to where how I introduced you as somebody who didn't want to surrender to what other people thought was real or possible or whatever. Okay, so what has to happen? First, how can people connect with Do Nation? What should people do next?
Great. Okay. So have a look at our site. I'm sure that it's wearedonation.com. It will be in the notes, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
You can go on and, yeah, if you've got an event coming up, create a page and invite your community to take action. We have amazing plans for evolving our platform because we really want to turbocharge impact. And this is a bit cheeky to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. We're raising investment at the moment so that we can realize these really, really big, ambitious, amazing plans. So anyone can just get in touch with me. And yeah, the more we can grow our network, I think, it's not just about the nuts and bolts of business, isn't it? It's about growing our network and growing our global community. So
Mm-hmm.
connect.
It's a network. It's a network that's going to make this happen. That's absolutely the way it's going to work, is that we all are going to find little ways to reach out to strangers and friends, and we'll all become friends in the end. Okay, well, thank you so much, Claudia, for telling us all about Do Nation. I want folks to remember that as a part of this, Claudia is in this wave of goodness and progress that we're pointing to at the Goodness Exchange. The Goodness Exchange has thousands of articles about people like this. It's good news for people who are curious and want to know what's right with the world. So join us there if you want to extend this way of thinking and expand it in every direction. I hope the connections that Claudia and I have given you to goodness and progress will carry you through your week, and you will start finding all the joy and wonder that we've been talking about. Thanks.